What's up YouTube? Today we'll take a look at all of the best cards and decks from Pool 2. First of all, here's an overview of all of the cards that you'll unlock as you progress through Card Pool 2. But to make it easier for you, I have categorized them into different card packages. So one of the best groups of cards that you will unlock is the Unrevealed combo package centered around Infinaut. Now Infinaut on his own is not that great. You have to skip turn 5 to be able to play him on turn 6. That is a huge cost usually. But we can try to avoid that setback in two possible ways. One is the combination with Sunspot. If we have Sunspot on the board, we do not waste the 5 mana on turn 5 if we pass, but it gets converted into 5 power instead. The other way is Jubilee, cheating out the infinite from your deck. Of course, not the most consistent way of pulling the infinaut, but incredibly powerful when it does happen, and we can combine her with Odin to have a second shot at it. Now the next big group of cards here is the Disruption package. Not all of them are good, so we go through them one by one. Iceman is a great card, one of the best 1-drops in the game. Scorpion, also a very solid 2-drop, great at Disruption. It usually hits around 3 or 4 cards in our opponent's hand. One of the coolest control and playmaking cards in here is Storm. Just very versatile, allows for a lot of outplay potential, and super strong if you follow her up with a strong 4-drop like Jubilee or Jessica Jones to secure a location. Now, arguably the strongest addition in this set is Killmonger, just because the Kazoo 1-drop deck is so popular in Pool 1 and also throughout a lot of Pool 2. So Killmonger will be a great meta counter, a great tech choice if you run into a lot of those Kazoo decks. Apart from that, we have Rhino, not really a strong card, doesn't see much play, it's basically a low budget Storm. We have Sandman, a bit of an interesting card, but doesn't see play in a lot of decks. Same for Shang-Chi, technically a powerful card, but very situational and doesn't really pay off too often. Hobgoblin is a more consistent card, also kind of niche though, because it can backfire. If your opponent's location is completely full, Hobgoblin will stay on your side of the board. Or if your opponent plays a card like Odin in their deck, they can send the Hobgoblin right back to your side of the board. And the last card also doesn't really see a lot of play, Leech. I don't think I've ever seen anyone run this card, to be honest. Next up, we have some strong but important additions to the hand size package. Agent 13, one of the stronger 1-drops in the game. Mostly super synergistic with Devil Dinosaur, and the same can be said for the Collector. We'll see more of these two cards in a second. Apart from that, all of the other cards here are meant for pre-built archetypes. I've already covered all of them in previous videos. I'll link all of them in the description of the video. The Destroy package gets Bucky Barnes as well as Sabretooth. Sabretooth doesn't really see play very often. Bucky Barnes, however, is super consistent. We have movement additions in form of Cloak, very powerful card. Vulture, a nice movement payoff besides just multiple man. And we have Vision as a top-end finisher, but not the strongest card neither, because usually you'll only be able to move him once on turn 6, and he is kind of pricey for some movement. Moving on, discard and buff I've put into one package. We have Morbius as a discard payoff, and we have Swarm as some of the best discard fodder in the game. Swarm can heavily benefit from Okoye buffs if Swarm is still in the deck, or Nakia if you do hit Swarm in your hand with a power buff. And the last couple of cards not mentioned yet, the ongoing package gets Ebony Maw as a consistent and strong early unit, and Warpath. Also a pretty cool tech choice in decks where you only play for 2 locations. And now the question you've all been asking yourselves, which one of these are the strongest? I personally think that Unreveal and Ongoing are some of the strongest decks that you can play in Pool 2. I've used them myself to climb to Infinite, and as I said, I already featured them in previous videos. I'll link them in the description if you want to check them out. But I also have a bunch of other decks here that are just as strong, or maybe even stronger than the ones I've already highlighted. And we'll start off with a couple of Devil Dinosaur variations. This is one of the most popular Pool 1 and Pool 2 archetypes, and I also believe it is one of the strongest. Here is a very straightforward version of the Devil Dinosaur deck. The idea is we have a bunch of cheap cards that generate extra cards, basically almost all of them. Agent 13, Mantis potentially if you predict your opponent correctly, Cable as well as Sentinel. Put some early power on the board and keep our hand size high so that Devil Dinosaur in the late game is gonna be very, very large at like 15 to 19 power quite consistently. The other two payoffs for this playstyle are the Collector, a sweet little 2-drop that passively increases in strength as we play this deck, as well as Angela that benefits from us playing all of those cheap cards at the same location as her. So often we want to play Angela and the Collector in one location, fill that up, and win the other location with either Devil Dinosaur or Iron Man. Chavez as a top-end finisher, but mostly a deck thinner as well, so it's more likely that we draw all of these other cards in the early and mid game. And Moon Girl is also a potential big power card. She might be overkill, she doesn't have to be in there. The idea is that she can copy another Devil Dinosaur, so we can go Dino on turn 5 and Dino on turn 6 to win 2 locations Jurassic Park style. But very often it is not necessary. Very often we will already have a large hand size, and Angela and the Collector already take care of 1 location, so we don't necessarily need another Dino. But either way, this is one of the most common and one of the most powerful builds as well. Also very fun to play, and I've seen a lot of people hit infinite with this style of deck. But you can also play some different variations of this. One that I think looks pretty darn cool is a deck that I like to call Hungry Dino, basically combining the Destroy package and Killmonger as a very impactful meta tech card with the Devil Dinosaur and hand size package. I found this on Regis Kilbin's channel while researching decks for this video, so gotta give credit where credit is due. This deck is quite interesting because it has a lot of cute combos that are not that evident at first sight. So Moon Girl is very interesting in this deck because it has some very cute copy targets. Nova is a great card to copy, and we can destroy 2 Novas with either Deathlock or Carnage or Killmonger on turn 5 or turn 6, while we already played a bunch of stuff onto the board to buff everything. And the other really neat synergy is Sabertooth. Once we destroyed it on turn 4, for example, we play Moon Girl on turn 5 and she will give us another 0-cost Sabertooth, which of course is synergistic with a card like Angela again, and the Collector benefits from all of these combos as well. So overall, less top-end value, less power cards, but more sweet combos and playmaking potential in this version of the deck. And the third one that I want to highlight, I call it Happy Dino. It is a bit more of a greedy version. It is centered around Jubilee. It also plays Sunspot and Infinaut, the unrevealed package I mentioned earlier on. But there are also a lot of other great alternative pulls from Jubilee. Cheating out the Dinosaur is very fun, of course. Cheating out America Chavez is pretty good. And of course, pulling Odin can be very strong because it reactivates Jubilee's effect immediately and allows us to pull another card from the deck. Besides that, we play a similar early game as in the other deck. Main difference is being the addition of Storm, which allows for some more control play style, and Storm into Jubilee on turn 4 will very often win a location, especially if we have a card like Sunspot there before. I gotta admit, I don't know which one of these 3 versions is the strongest. There's just not enough data around yet to get a clear idea, but you can definitely climb to infinite with all 3 of those if you play, and especially if you snap and retreat well enough. You can just play whichever version you like the most. They're all pretty strong. I want to showcase 2 more powerful archetypes that you can use in Pool 2. The first one might seem familiar to you. It is the Kazoo archetype. It is probably the most popular Pool 1 deck, and a lot of people who just get into Pool 2 are still playing this. And for a good reason. The deck is very powerful even coming into Pool 3. But keep in mind that now we have to watch out for Killmonger destroying pretty much half of our units, half of our decks with his unreveal effect. And at this point, a lot of players are already smart enough to wait until turn 5 or 6 until they play their Killmonger. But there's a couple of things that we can do to prevent Killmonger from wiping us out of the game. One of them is Armor as a tech choice. At one location we can play Armor and 3 1-drops, or Angela into Armor into 2 more 1-drops. That will keep a couple of them safe. You might notice this deck does not run Onslaught. It is usually a staple in this deck, especially in Pool 1, to double the effects of Kazoo and Blue Marvel. However, one smart way to play this deck is to keep all of these 1-cost cards until turn 6. We will usually be behind at that point, which means our opponent has to reveal their cards first. So even if they play Killmonger on turn 6, they have to reveal him first, and then we reveal all of our 1-cost cards afterwards, which means they're all going to be saved from his daggers. So one way to play this deck very often will look like turn 1 we either pass or play one of the 1-drops, then we go Angela into Bishop, into Kazar, into Blue Marvel, and on turn 6 we just play 4, 5 or even 6 of these 1-drops, as many as we have available to us, and basically blow out our opponent in one big combo miracle turn. America Chavez mostly also just here as a deck thinner, increasing the likelihood to draw Bishop, Kazar and Blue Marvel early on, because we don't necessarily want to draw and play them on turn 6. But as I mentioned earlier on, some legitimate tech choices are Onslaught, or you could run another strong 1-drop like Agent 13 instead of America Chavez. So overall, still a very strong deck if you know how to play it smart. Another archetype that has a very different playstyle that I want to introduce to you is an unreveal control deck. This is pretty close to the jubilee decks from my previous video, I'll link them up here. But there are a couple of key differences. Instead of Ironheart and Wolfsbane, we play Storm as well as Killmonger for some disruption and some control and playmaking potential. Because we play Killmonger, we also cut Iceman to not shoot our own 1-drop with daggers. Instead we play Enchantress. This should be a great tech choice for the pull 2 meta because a lot of people are gonna be playing Devil Dinosaur decks or Khazar Blue Marvel decks or ongoing Spectrum decks, and Enchantress kind of counters all of those while we don't play any ongoing cards ourselves. So if you want to be one step ahead of the meta, I would recommend a deck like this, and for a more in-depth guide as well as gameplay examples, you can check out my previous video on reveal decks. But that's it for the video today. Let me know what you think of this type of format. Is it better to just showcase a lot of decks and talk card strategy, or do you prefer to see some gameplay examples? Please let me know in the comments. Also, if you watched all the way up until here, please leave a like and subscribe. It helps me a lot, it helps the channel, it helps the video grow a lot. So thank you in advance, and I'll see you around soon.